Productions presents the Math of ESP, why it works even if you don't believe in it. Okay, I kind of got into a little bit of the idea of how the lack of reading, Ray Bradbury, you don't have to burn books, you just have to get people to stop reading. Anybody that's ever walked into one of these churches knows that because this whole entire book is divided up into basically sentences, any preacher wanting to sell anything anywhere in the world simply has to extract a single line out of here and demand that you, of course, believe in blind faith and take his word for it, that he knows what that one sentence means more than anybody else, including the gods that supposedly has something to do with the writing of this. It's illogical, but in order to give you an understanding of how this works, okay, you have the Ten Commandments that thing is basically based off of. I don't have a list in front of me of them, but thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods, and thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's lover, whether it's male, female, whether you're gay, straight, asexual, celibate like me, whatever, it doesn't matter, okay? It's just you're not supposed to be out there stealing anything from anybody else. You're not supposed to be lying to anybody to get their stuff. You're not supposed to be lying to get money from people. You're not supposed to be lying for power. You're not supposed to be going out and killing people because they don't believe in what you don't believe in. You're not supposed to be stealing their lands by killing them. None of that, okay? The absolute Word of God. And it's the first thing that every Christian, Jew, Catholic, and Muslim violates, is the whole concept that if you're not supposed to kill, you don't walk out and blow somebody's head off because you don't like them. You just violated your own God, regardless of what your churches say. So that's why I say you have this whole entire illusion of people being smart in America, or smart in the church, or smart in a school, or smart somewhere, because all they do is they repeat what the socially accepted, government regimented, religion regimented ideals of how you should behave is. I am in a town that literally qualifies as having a saint in it, a verified religious artifact, okay? Almost 3 years here yet. Not a single person in this town has actually walked around talking to me with a pure heart, a clean heart. Everybody that approaches me is trying to figure out how to steal from me, because that's what they see their churches do. That's what they see their governments do. That's what they see their police do. That's what they see their military do. And all of it is based off of behavior from this Bible book, okay? So you have reason to learn not to read like they teach with that Bible, okay? Science fiction, on the other hand, is not about you believing that the writer is 100% correct. It is instead the writer putting forth, what if? What are the possibilities? Jules Verne, a submarine. Modern world, submarines everywhere, from Disneyland to your most elitist, secretist, military fighting forces. We got their little submarines. Your drug lords have submarines. Your border agents have submarines. But the thing is a sci-fi makes you think. Now, going and seeing a sci-fi movie involves using your eyes and using your ears. And from a biological, physiological standpoint, if your ears are involved and your eyes are involved, or your eyes are involved and your mouth is involved, or if your mouth just alone is involved, chances are you are not thinking very much at that moment, okay? When you're talking, you're usually spieling out some information, some of which you've done some pre-thinking about. You know, I've got my notepad here. I did some pre-thinking about what I'm going to talk about. But I've also, you know, if I'm talking, I can't be hearing anybody talk to me. I have to stop talking and listen to what they say. As I am listening to what they're saying, and especially if I'm standing in front of them and I'm watching them, I'm going to be watching their eyes and their facial expressions and their hands and their body language and everything else to find out how truthful they're talking. But I am pretty much engaged in just receiving again, okay? In actually sitting down and reading something, you're using your eyes, you're using your brain. You're not using your ears and you're not using your mouth. So your brain is able to actively engage in the process of thinking about these issues. How common are these, okay? Hurricane Florence is is actually at this point in time is hitting the North Carolina coast, everything from Georgia to Washington, D.C., area is under direct threat of impact of major flooding, major winds, major problems, a long-lasting storm that's expected to be there for a good 4 or 5 days. And you got some 6 to 9 nuclear power plants all sitting there that are all literally on rivers, on waterways. So all of this major storm that's coming in that's expected to drop 40 inches across all of the state of North Carolina. Okay. Well, I shouldn't say it's going to drop 40 inches. It's going to drop huge amounts of rain across all of North Carolina, all of South Carolina, Virginia. Okay. And it's just going to, just drop and drop and drop this rain. So you've got all these places that are in flood zones that are extremely hazardous to human health. Well, that's Fukushima at the top of the list. Power plant second. Your two biggest concerns that human beings have never faced the reality that they don't know what to do with. Occupy ISS, International Space Station, does in fact give an answer. Get it off the planet. You're already radiated so deeply that it's not going to be inconceivably wrong to be shooting these things into space, pack them into some kind of a plastic bag full of nuclear waste, and throw it at the sun. It's not going to hurt the sun. Your whole planet is less than something like what 1,000 times or 2,000 times smaller than the sun. Your whole planet trashing into the sun isn't going to damage it. Okay? So getting rid of the waste makes sense. Now you're looking at the fact, and for me, I love it. I'm enjoying this, okay? The natural current flow of the jet streams is to go from Gulf Coast to northeast states, which means if those 6 to 9 nuclear reactors melt down, any of them, for any reason, something goes wrong, majorly wrong, and things shut down, and the power is known to go out. There is another one in Japan with the power out. You are looking at the absolute wonderful idea that all that nuclear radiation is going to go right over Washington. Warmonger Central is going to be destroyed by its own destructive feces. Yeah. Those people, it's always the good old days. It's always the past. It's always what was behind you. You're never looking forward. You're always thinking about, God, wow, if I could just have my girlfriend or boyfriend from 1960 back again. Why? That's old and done and past. You yourself personally have changed. You are not that person. I'm a 60-year-old man. I'm walking around a town where, granted, the average age of a girl having her first baby in her arms, already born, is about 15 years of age. Somewhere between 15 and 16 max, okay? There's an awful lot of girls that are very pretty by my standards alone, not even talking about just being pretty women out there overall as a photographer, okay? But there's women out there in the, in the 15-year-old range, going up all the way up. I mean, I've seen some pretty good-looking, 50, 55-year-old women around here that, body-wise is nice. I'm not that 20-year-old kid, so I'm not going to go out there and chase all that naughty pussy around. Okay, I don't need it. I don't have time for it. I got this to worry about. I don't need to worry about some woman that's only interested in me and what she can steal or what kind of money she gets in her hand. Obviously, the woman doesn't speak English. She's got no chance of relating with me. She's got no chance of talking to me about anything. She's got no chance of exposing any depth of her being to me or my being to her. It just simply is a communications error. Okay, so it's totally illogical. You have all of this stuff here, and with a sci-fi knowledge, okay, the background person is looking at this and going, "Oh wow, if only it was so nice back in the 1800s before we started this industrial revolution." You can't go back. You can go forward. You can start cleaning stuff up. You can stop the warfare. You can stop GMOs. You can let the planet recycle. You can, use the nuclear garbage that's out there now to try and save yourselves. And while you're doing that, you can also get rid of some of it and recycle it. Literally recycle it back into something that's less harmless than where it is right now. I'm sorry, I can't say that the sun's radiation is harmless because it's deadly in space. But you have all of this, and you are forwardly thinking about what's going on enough to where I recognize this problem. Probably, in all honesty, understood this is where those plagues that all those preachers kept screaming at people in the 70s would be coming from. When I learned about the mutation process and I understood the chemical process, and in 73, 74 I did the research into how deeply embedded your society is with the big oil companies and the big chemical producing companies and the big pharmacies and stuff like this, I realized that you were setting yourself up for a scenario that you wouldn't be able to control. In 75, I started research into the nuclear industry. 76, I produced a report on it in which I spoke about the idea that a Fukushima accident would in fact actually happen. It was in the projections because the corruption was that deep. There was no answer for this, and there was an extreme problem with that, and there was a burial of what was called nuclear fusion. This is fission, which is different and deadly. Fusion is what your sun runs on, and creating a small sun-type nuclear power plant is actually extremely safe in comparison to all of this stuff here. In doing that and putting that all together and thinking that far forward, it gives you an idea of what science fiction does. It makes you think forward. In just plain reading, which is why governments don't want you to read, that's why everything is cut down to bare minimum, that's why in the military you are given very, very little of any allowance for material possessions to go with you, because they don't want you to be bringing books and sitting and reading and thinking. They want you to be doing military stuff and thinking military attitude and military belief. Like I say, Common Core and the PC and stuff like that is all part of this and involved in this. So you have an awful lot of refusal to think forward, and sci-fi is relegated as an absolute fantasy, when in fact you look at your science fiction, a lot of it is written by actual scientists. Isaac Asimov wrote more science books than he did science fiction, and he is considered one of the more prolific writers of science fiction. He's way up there at the top, folks, and he wrote more about science than science fiction.